Hello everyone! Raku here for the second part of the build showcase dedicated to shock builds. Today it's kind of a special edition because we're gonna break one rule for one build. We're gonna use Astral Protection. During this video you will see 3 builds, with the last one being one of my all-time favorites. So stay all the way with me. And also just pretend that it hasn't been 6 months since I posted anything, and let's go! To explain the basics of these builds, you can watch the first video for more details. But quickly, it comes down to using the skill Conductive Strike. At level 5, it allows us to boost electric damage by plus 300% to enemies inflicted with shock. Shock is a status condition that inflicts electric damage every 2 seconds during 10 seconds from level 1 to 5 and then 20 seconds at level 6. So the goal is to keep the enemy affected permanently by shock to profit from this huge damage boost. The most important part to use these builds effectively is to play good and consistent defensive options. As always, we won't use Reflect nor Ghostwalker, and for today, exceptionally, we'll use Astral Protection for our first build. And with that said, let's take a look at our first build today. This one is simple. We're gonna use Psycho Launchers for both our defense with Astral Protection and inflicting shock to the enemy with Shooting Star. Shooting Star inflicts shock 3 at level 5, which lasts for 10 seconds. It's too short to really allow us to DPS properly, so we're gonna use the Insert Extend Shock 20, and with that the shock duration goes from 10 to 30 seconds. For our defense, Astral Protection, which is really broken, will allow us to have a nice defense for a comfortable playability. This art is for the ones that just want to play chill and really versatile builds. What it does is it boosts all attribute resistances and restore HP when using arts. Restoring HP is a nice bonus, but what really interests us are resistances boosts. At level 5, the art grants us a level 5 buff which boosts all our resistances by 35. If you reuse Astral Protection while it's already active on you, you have a 15% chance of the new buff's tier being increased by 1, and this is also true for every other buff in this game. If that procs, Astral Protection 6 grants you 50 for every attribute resistance. But maybe you don't know what these values mean, so let me explain what attribute resistances really are in Xenoblade X. They are actually damage resistance percentage. The value of your resistance for one attribute is in fact the reduction percentage of damage you will take from that original damage an attack does to you. If you have 0 resistance for an attribute, you will take 100% damage of an oncoming attack of the same attribute. But if you have 100 resistance, you will block 100% of damage and take the minimum possible, which is 1 damage in this game. For example, if an attack does 1000 ether damage and you have, let's say, 60 ether resistance, the final damage you will take will be 40% of 1000, which is 400 damage. Another example, with 80 electric resistance for an upcoming 12,000 damage electric attack reduces our damage taken by 80%, so we will only take 20% of the 12,000 damage, which is 2,400 damage. What you need to understand is that the defense stat in this game is fucking useless, as it's a flat reduction of upcoming damage compared to the attribute resistances, which is a real important defensive stat. The more attribute resistance you have, the less you will take damage, up to a maximum of 100 for 100% damage reduction. So the goal of this build is to apply shock with Shooting Star every 30 seconds and refreshing Astral Protection every 25 to 28 seconds. For our defense to work properly with almost every enemy in the game, we need to have at least 50 resistances in all attributes, which allow us to have at least 85% damage resistance at everything. And at most, if we get the buff to level 6, we have 100% damage reduction for all attributes. With the extra heal that the aura provides, you will be almost invincible. In order to reach these numbers, you will need to fill your armor insert slots with attribute resistances inserts, so we can't be using those for potential buff inserts. This is also pretty important. You can and want to use the secondary cooldown bonus effect of Astral Protection to reach immediately the level 6 buff. You won't actually get able to reach 50 resistance in all attributes, so adapt your builds according to your target for more safety. But you can just also get fine resistances all around, but not 100% in practice. Moreover, because we're not avoiding hits but tanking them, you are more vulnerable to crowd control than other builds. Lastly, don't forget your 2 minimum resistance reducer 20 augments for shock to proc consistently. With that in mind, our TP arts won't be very strong and we can pick a weapon that has great damaging non-TP arts that can be electric. It is absolutely mandatory for Conductive Strike to proc. You actually have the choice, there is plenty of melee weapons that can fill this role, which are Javelin, Dual Blade, Photon Saber or even Longsword. But personally, I'm choosing the Photon Saber for aura farming purposes and also because it's very fun. So now let's review quickly all the skills, arts and equipment for this build. Also, be careful about attribute resistances debuffs because if you get hit by one, you will take much more damage than you expect. In practice, it looks like this. The second build is basically almost the same as the first one, but with a different defensive strategy. Instead of using Astral Protection, we are using the Evasion stat. Basically, the chance of you getting hit by an attack is lowered the higher your Evasion stat is. Without going into too much detail, because here there is actually a lot, the chance of you getting hit by an attack is the enemy's accuracy stat, melee or range, minus your evasion stat divided by 100 to make it a percentage. However, whatever the final hit chance is, it is capped between 10% and 98%. So you can't avoid attacks 100% of the time, but 90% at best. As long as an attack doesn't one-shot you, you will be safe most of the time. So, for example, if an enemy has 500 range accuracy and you have 450 evasion, the hit chance for the enemy to hit you will be equal to 50% of the time. Finally, to be comfortable, the evasion value we're targeting is 90 above the enemy highest accuracy stat, because 100 above would be useless, each chance being capped at 10% at worst, so 90 in stats. Note that this build is not viable against most endgame super bosses, and that for two reasons: their shock immunity and their too high accuracy stats between around 400 and 600, and it forces to put everything in accuracy stat, resulting in not enough resistance for additional 20 slots, which are mandatory. But it's a nice and cozy build for your everyday routine without worrying too much about things. The evasion value we're targeting to be somewhat okay is around 450 to avoid most hits except big endgame tyrants. Be sure to check the enemy stats and adapt if you think you get hit too much. Regarding our melee attack, it's basically the same thing as the previous build, but this time, for a change, we're gonna use the dual blades. Let's see what it looks like in action. For the last build of this video, I'm proud to show you an alternate way to inflict shock to the enemy, as I've told you in the last video. It unlocks way more potential than using the two arts we've been using to debuff the enemy. I couldn't believe my eyes when I tested it and I saw it really worked. It not only works in fact, but it's also very fun to play, very interactive and so strong as well. It has become one of my all-time favorite builds. So this famous build is based on the weapon insert melee shock 20. It grants us a very high chance of inflicting shock 4 when melee auto-attacking. This probability is 50%, so it's very usable. But be careful while using this augment, because depending on the level of the insert, you won't get the same chance to inflict shock. If you can't craft the level 20, you can also use the level 5, 10 or 15, which also have 50% inflicting rate. The other levels have a lower infliction rate. It will inflict also a weaker version of shock, but we don't really care because it's having the debuff active that is really important. If you follow me right, that means that we can use whatever weapon we want. And in this case, I suggest you the topple lock as a defensive strategy with the assault rifle. If you want a full explanation on topple lock, I suggest you see the previous video. But quickly, topple is a status effect where the enemy is tied to the ground, can't attack or even move. The goal is to chain topple the target, making it unable to do anything while we are damaging it. Assault Hammer, a rifle art, is the best one for this strategy and by far for many reasons, so we will use it. Finally, for our melee weapon, the best DPS is provided by the longsword thanks to offensive stance, which boosts our total melee attack by 150% at level 5 and 200% at level 6, including our damage from TP arts. That's why it's so broken. It works with melee TP arts without raising the potential stat, and it's a damage multiplication for everything regarding melee. Additionally, the longsword have a very good TP and non-TP damaging art, which attributes are defined by the weapon's attribute. So we can use electric longswords without worrying about the art's attributes and fully take advantage of the conductive strike skill, skyrocketing our damage through the roof. Another benefit of using topple lock is that we only need 2 resistance reducer 20 augments to make it work consistently, and so the rest of the armor slots are free for potential buffs. For our gear, we actually have 2 possibilities. We are gonna run the same art either way, but that's our stats that will change. The first loadout is best when the enemy has a high electric attribute resistance, and in that case we will equip a helmet that boosts as much as possible our potential. This is to maximize the damage of Blossom Dance, which bypasses enemies' resistances. In gameplay, we will try to use this art as much as we can. We will also equip in that case melee shock 20 and extend shock 20 on our weapon. The second loadout is for the cases when electric attribute resistance of the enemy is low or even negative. In that case, we will equip a special helmet, the Unfathomable Devil Horns. Why equip such a low rank helmet? Because it has naturally 2 great augments that we need, which is melee shock 9 and extend shock 9. They must normally be equipped on our weapon, but here, because they are on our helmet, it releases 2 insert slots that will allow us to boost further our melee attack stat and therefore our damage with non-TP arts. There are other versions of Devil Horns that gives us higher level augments, but this one is the most interesting one. Remember what I said earlier. I don't care about the shock level as long as it procs. It's the hit rate that is important. On this table we can see that melee attack shock 9 has a 40% proc chance, which I think is usable. The extend shock 9 gives us only 9 seconds, resulting the debuff lasting for 19 seconds. This isn't actually bad, this is actually even usable, but you must be more consistent and attentive when shock is active or not to refresh it as fast as you can. That's the second loadout I will play today, because it is also a more proactive and interactive build. Now let's review our final loadout. With this art equipped, you can actually do a very fun combo with Power Dive that grants you Supercharge, then Hercules Blow, dealing a ton of damage. Now that we have all 3 builds detailed, let's wrap the video with a good old montage. Enjoy! Well folks, that's the end for today. I am very happy to work on these videos again, and I hope we'll like them. The next one is already in preparation and will maybe be out in less than fucking 2 years, I don't know. But in the meantime, take care and see you soon.